and we used sort of the Uber method. Was, we can just go into town and deliver Uber cars and drivers, and then when we get called out on it, then we'll address those legal concerns as we go. But in the meantime, we're going to be providing this service that people will love, and people have come to love it in our organization. And statewide, it's becoming more and more prevalent in the regional center system. We have 21 regional centers in the state, and all combined, we take care of about 280,000 folks with developmental disabilities. And we went to the level of going to the federal government, getting approval from the Centers for Medicaid Services to accept electronic signature for all of our certifications and things for Medicaid. Went to the state level, we amended some laws, got some laws changed to add electronic signature to the civil code. State level and department level, we wrote the program directive, which is necessary for all the regional centers to start using electronic signatures. Locally, all of our providers, all of our families that are capable use it and love it. And we continue on this digital transformation, and we're working on some more and better things, not just for us, but for the entire state system. So it's been quite a journey for us.
That's fantastic. And so what's next for you? What's next for the for your regional journey, or for your journey?
Well, we've partnered with our San Diego Regional Center. They are the authors of our case management system, and many of the forms that we use throughout the state, our paper forms where traditionally we would take these forms back and enter them into our case management system. So we're working on new tools that are going to allow us to extract this information and then load it into the system automatically. That's a big deal. A lot of regional centers are now moving toward their electronic records. We started on electronic records 15 years ago. So a lot of the path that we learned about, starting digital, staying digital is the way to go. So we're clearing the path for other regional centers. So this is it's spreading across the state. So it's actually kind of fun. It's fun to see that, we're not going to be the only regional center that can deliver services to folks, in 24 hours. That is just magical for us.
Right. And that was your key, your key indicator, your key measurable was being able to deliver services more quickly to more people.
Yeah, that's for everything we do.
Right.
And the dollars, ROI stuff, it's such a simple calculation for us that when, the bill comes in for DocuSign, the CFO, she just signs it electronically, of course, and it gets processed because there's no question, the soft savings and the hard dollar savings behind it. So that was pretty simple.
Great. And so I noticed that there are always questions about ROI, and that, of course, when you're dealing with services and you're providing, constituent services, you are obviously being measured on something other than return on investment. But it's always good to have measurable results in any of these cases. So
right.
That's great.
One thing, Ken, that's been really sort of astonishing, in the social services field, we have to keep track of our interactions with the folks that we serve, and we do this in 15-minute increments, and we have to assign them a particular type of a contact. And there's documentation, face-to-face, telephone contact, and sort of a general category. In the 3 years that we've been doing this, what we've seen, which is remarkable, and I think we're the only ones that have ever seen this, is that we're seeing a decline in the growth of documentation units, and we're seeing an increase in face-to-face time. And face-to-face time is the only component of our business that is directly tied to satisfaction. So we're excited about that. The other regional centers are excited about that, and we're seeing this more and more. So that was our ROI. That's very definitive.
Great. So I want to actually move us. We're about we got about 14 minutes left. I want to make sure we get conversation going here and get to our audience questions that are kind of rolling in here pretty quickly. So let's do that. If you do have a question, most of you have found it already. The button on your console to be able to ask a question. One of the questions we had, of course, was on identifying cost savings ROI. I think we kind of hit on that one, unless Genty, did you guys do any kind of ROI assessment and procurement in Santa Clara County?
Not yet, since we have done this as an enterprise platform since May of 2017. We're going to do that next year, but the success rate has been phenomenal, and everybody's excited and they are cheering because you could do it while you're at your using your laptop or also on your cell phones. And business is so fast, people are not able to keep up with this. They're loving it.
Great. We're getting a lot of people asking for copies of the slides. A few folks, looks like they had trouble getting in. They wanted to see the slides. We will make the recording of this presentation available, and we'll put the slides on SlideShare after the fact. So no worries. I had someone asking, has anyone used an e-signature for oath of office? And I'm trying to think of anybody here. Maybe Howard, are you familiar with that use case? Did you support that?
We haven't used it for oath of office, but one of the things that, as you've been talking about signatures, so a specific use that we are not authorized to use e-signature for right now is documents requiring the board president's signature. There was some concerns over whether that has to be a digital signature instead of an electronic signature, but a bigger importance to us is right now there's a California government code regarding facsimile signatures. I don't know if you've seen that, and basically the board president has to register with the state that he's allowing the clerk of the board folks to place his facsimile signature, which is a rubber stamp, inked rubber stamped imprint on various documents that the clerk of the board sends out. And right now, our county council won't agree that an electronic signature in that case is okay. So we don't want to be troubling the board president to sign every document that goes out with his facsimile signature on it. But we can't get county council to approve that using an electronic signature process would serve the same purpose. So that's been a unique sort of twist for us.
Yeah, I mean, and you run into that a lot, these sort of unfortunate drafting situations where there was a technological disadvantage or limitation at the time that created a particular policy or standard that now has to be deconstructed and questioned in order to actually make it useful. And that happens a lot. And when we're dealing with transformation, you will run into that almost daily. We had a question for the group about what specific types of e-signatures are being accepted. A lot of you had mentioned, and of course this goes right into the crux of the different types of digital policy segments. But you all mentioned that you have a particular workflow engine that you use and favor that you are using to control the workflow and control the signing process. But what about accepting outside electronic signatures and records? What types do you accept? Does your policy afford that type of flexibility?
Yeah, we accept everything and allow everything. What's good for the goose, right? I think a lot of our service providers have embraced electronic signature because they see the benefits to them as they work for us. And so it's spread out from them to the folks that they work with as well. So it's come full circle. So we're green light go on that stuff.
We didn't really consider in our policy signatures coming in. To be honest, I don't know that we've gotten any that I've even am aware of. So that's kind of an interesting twist that we focused strictly on the county's use of it from the standpoint of being the initiator rather than the receiver. We may have to go back and address that.
Right. That's part of the three-legged stool of
Yeah.
going digital. Is that you don't always control the workflow, and you have to be able to. I like that. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? If you're going to be an advocate.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, Ken, do you think this same type of conversation was going on when fax machines started appearing?
No, and I would say that the difference would be that facsimile technology is probably pretty uniform. So, and of course, in order to be part of a fax transaction, you had to have a fax machine that would do the handshake. And here with electronic signatures, and especially with hybrid transactions, you will end up getting sometimes you'll end up with a paper copy of electronic record that somehow found its way to paper, or you'll find an email that has an electronic record attached to it. So it's not just the means by which the document was executed or delivered, but also the method that it was delivered to you. And you may be a relying party that's not actually a party to the transaction. And what are your requirements for looking at that transaction and saying, yeah, it meets my risk threshold? It leads to a lot of questions that need to be kind of ironed out. Sometimes much more complicated than controlling the workflow. I think we had a question.
And I think that is, sort of a interesting, tale of the times. That we have so much information now that it makes it harder and harder to know, what's real when, if you look back at a fax machine or being able to cut and paste the signature and, all of the troubles that are associated with that, and you look at what we have today, I feel like it's so much more secure today. And, one of the questions about the risk of not having rigid policies. I think having flexible policies that are open to new technologies and new methodologies is really key to keeping this thing moving forward without creating additional barriers that you have to deconstruct down the road when technologies change.
That's right, and that is a question that we have about the risk of not having the rigid policies, and I think that might be directed to everybody, but in particular to you, Scott, in moving away from. By the way, the Electronic Authentication Act that Washington still has is not dissimilar to a lot of other actually laws that have turned into regulations within other states, and California included, where it's kind of a digital signature standard for doing state business. So your experience can be pretty instructive. And I guess the question was, can you expand on the risk of not having those rigid policies but relying more on guidelines and standards for adoption?
Yeah, I think, the level of comfort that people have with something that's been kind of sanctioned and approved, which we did have, again, very prescriptively, but the other side is describing, e-signatures, a sound symbol process. That's a very open type of definition, and it can incorporate, logins. The whole thing about a GIF or TIFF file with a signature is kind of a misnomer. So it really does allow for an X. It could be a picture of your dog. It could be anything, so long as you, associate it to the record with intent to sign and ensure the integrity of the record throughout the process. So it is not just one thing, and there are solutions like DocuSign that have baked that in. We've stayed technology kind of agnostic on that, but making sure that you do satisfy the intent of the definition with whatever technology or whatever means that you want to use. I think that is important to keep those options open. But it does, too much freedom causes paralysis sometimes. So there's a fine balance there, and we're trying to find that. But I think that's a good point about, you know, keeping your options open on how to satisfy the intent of an electronic signature so that you can move forward without